Ever wonder how you can feel a single raindrop, remember a song from years ago, or yank your hand off a hot stove in less than a second? Well, it's all thanks to your body's very own high-speed internet. It's this incredible biological network, way faster and more complicated than anything we've ever built. We're talking about the nervous system. It is the ultimate command and control center for literally everything you think, feel, and do. All right, so here's the game plan. We're going to start with the big picture, the overall layout of this whole system. Then we'll zoom way in to meet the microscopic messengers that do all the heavy lifting. After that, we'll figure out how they send their signals, pop into the main command center, your brain, and finally, we'll check out the amazing autopilot system that keeps you running without you even having to think about it. Okay, first up, let's get our heads around the high-level blueprint. Think of this as the master plan for your body's entire communication network. So this diagram here lays it all out. Your entire nervous system is basically broken into two main parts. Right at the core, you've got the central nervous system. That's the brain and spinal cord, acting as HQ. And then branching out from there, you have the peripheral nervous system, which is this huge network of nerves connecting headquarters to every single other part of your body. So let's just make that super clear. The central nervous system, or CNS, is your body's main processor. It's just the brain and the spinal cord. That's it. Everything else, every other nerve fiber, makes up the peripheral nervous system, or PNS. Just think of the PNS as all the wires and cables connecting that central computer to all of your sensors, your muscles, and your organs. So now that we've seen the big map, let's pull out the microscope and zoom all the way in. We're about to meet the actual cells that make this entire network tick, kind of the unsung heroes of this whole story. And here it is, the star of the show. The neuron. This is your primary information carrier. You see those little tree-like branches on the left? Those are called dendrites, and they basically act like antennas, catching all the incoming signals. That signal then moves through the main cell body and zips down that one long cable, the axon, to pass the message along to the next cell in line. But, neurons can't do it all by themselves. Meet the glial cells. They are the essential support crew. The name glia actually comes from the Greek word for glue, and that's kind of what they do. They hold the neurons together, they protect them, they clean up after them. They're basically the roadies that make the whole rock concert possible. So let's just put them side by side. Neurons are the messengers, right? They're the ones conducting the electrical impulses that carry all the information. Glia, on the other hand, are the support staff. They're the glue, the protectors, the maintenance crew. Both are absolutely critical. One just can't work without the other. Okay, so we've met the messengers. Now it's time to see how they actually do their job. How does a signal get from point A to point B? Well, the message itself is what we call a nerve impulse, or an action potential. And really, the best way to picture it is like a tiny spark sizzling its way down a fuse. It's this self-sustaining wave of electrical energy that just shoots right down the neuron's surface, carrying that signal along with it. But here's the catch. That electrical spark can't actually jump from one neuron to the next. The handoff has to happen at this tiny, tiny gap called a synapse. So when the impulse gets to the end of one neuron, it triggers the release of these chemical messengers. These chemicals float across that little gap, and then they activate the next neuron, starting a whole new electrical signal. It's pretty amazing. And these chemical messengers? They're called neurotransmitters, and I bet you've heard of some of them. Dopamine and serotonin, they're hugely involved in your mood and feelings of pleasure. And endorphins, those are your body's very own natural painkillers. They are, quite literally, the chemical language of your brain. Okay, let's put all this together and see it in action with something called a reflex arc. This is your body's emergency response system. So, a receptor in your skin feels something hot. A sensory neuron zaps that signal straight to your spinal cord, which immediately shoots a command back out through a motor neuron. That command goes to an effector, like your muscle, telling it to contract and pull away. All of this happens before your brain even knows you're in pain. And here is the absolute classic example, the knee-jerk test at the doctor's office. That little tap stretches a receptor in your thigh muscle. A sensory neuron sends a signal directly to the spinal cord, and the spinal cord immediately tells a motor neuron to make that muscle contract. Your leg kicks out before your brain even gets the memo. It's a perfect, beautiful demonstration of that super fast pathway. All right, let's zoom back out from those tiny signals and go back to the macro view. It's time to focus on the ultimate command center, the central nervous system itself. This cross-section gives us a fantastic look at the brain's major neighborhoods. We can see that big, wrinkly cerebrum on top, the cerebellum tucked away underneath at the back, and then the brainstem, which connects everything to the spinal cord. So let's take a quick look at what each of these parts is responsible for.
So each part has a really distinct job. The cerebrum, that's your thinking brain. It's where consciousness, memory, and all your thoughts live. The cerebellum, you can think of that as the movement brain. It coordinates all your actions so you can walk smoothly or catch a ball. And the brainstem, that's the life support brain. It just runs all the vital background programs like your heartbeat and breathing, and you never even have to notice.
For our last section, we're going to look at the part of your nervous system that is working tirelessly in the background, managing all the stuff you never, ever have to think about. This is your body's autopilot system. And it's called the autonomic nervous system, or ANS. This is the division that takes care of all those involuntary functions. I mean, think about it. You don't have to consciously tell your heart to beat or tell your stomach to digest your lunch, right? The ANS just handles all of that for you, 24/7. Now, the ANS itself is split into two divisions that pretty much work in opposition to each other. You've got the sympathetic system, which is your famous fight or flight response. It kicks into high gear during times of stress to get you ready for action. And its counterpart is the parasympathetic system, which is all about rest and digest. It's the one that calms everything down and handles routine maintenance. So let's look at what that actually feels like. In a stressful fight or flight situation, your heart starts pounding to pump more oxygen to your muscles. Your blood pressure goes up. In contrast, when you're in a rest and digest state, your heartbeat slows way down, and your body redirects energy to things like digestion. It's this constant, brilliant balancing act going on inside you. You know, this quote really just nails it. The nervous system isn't just about sending messages back and forth like a postal service. It's about using those messages to control and integrate every single thing your body does, from a simple reflex all the way up to a complex thought. So think about this. Every single thing you see, hear, and think is really just a pattern of electrical signals firing off in your brain. Your nervous system literally builds your entire reality from these signals. Which leaves us with one last thought. If your reality is just a pattern of signals, what happens when those signals change?